everybody. Welcome to episode 50 of Eat, Drink, Write, and Urban Fantasy Whiteboard. So today we're going to talk about how you take an idea from that little inkling of an idea and make it into an actual book. So first, before we get into all of that, how was your week?
It is finals week, so it's been a little stressful. I'm done with one of my classes, so that's, not a non-issue, but my other one has decided to make us do an entire project proposal. So it's like a 10-page thing that I have to design experiments for and all that kind of stuff, all for a dumb class that doesn't even matter. And then for the same class, I have to write I have to take a test for it, and it's take home, which is nice, but it's essentially a 12-page paper. So that's been my week. And that'll be my week until I think Friday.
So Friday?
Yeah. So Friday the 18th.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so it'll have passed by the time this publishes.
I don't think so, because next Tuesday is before the 18th.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been to record all day, so my brain is mush.
I can tell.
Oh my God, I'm so tired. Oh, and I've got a headache right here in the back of my neck.
Of course.
But my week is fine. It's court prep, and I had in-person court yesterday. One of our agents had COVID and came anyway.
What?
He was cleared by the CDC. He had tested positive on November 28th. So yesterday was day 10. And they said, oh, yeah, you can go in.
Okay.
So I'm real uncomfortable about that.
Yeah.
I mean, he had no symptoms the whole time. Well, he had a fever in the very beginning, but never felt bad at all.
Yeah. I mean, theoretically, 10 days after symptom onset, so after the fever would be fine.
Yeah. And we needed him desperately. I just was a little uncomfortable because I've got underlying conditions and stuff. So, and our judge, he's 68, which isn't super old, but
yeah.
And he's healthy. He plays tennis and very actively, but still, you never know how that is going to affect you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was a little uncomfortable for me. I've got court tomorrow, so I'm trying to get through that. I got court all next week, so I'm trying to do all the administrative stuff I do for that.
Yeah.
Went to the doctor because he wouldn't fill my prescriptions without me going in to see him again. Because for COVID, he let me slide. I'm supposed to go in for blood work every 6 months.
Yeah.
And he let me go a whole year, and he's finally like, I'm not going to sign any more prescriptions until you come in. So I had to go and do that. And he found an issue with my thyroid. So I got to go and have more tests for that. I'm just tired. It's been a crazy week.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you eating and drinking?
I'm not eating yet. I'm going to eat dinner after this. So I didn't want to eat snacks or whatever before this, but what I'm going to eat, and I'll take pictures of it, are leftover ribs from that barbecue place in Lawrenceville.
You barbecue.
So, yeah, so that's what I'm going to eat. And then right now I'm drinking, I asked Jordan, my little sister, to give me more hot chocolate mix. So I'm drinking hot chocolate.
Very nice.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, we already ate dinner.
Oh, good.
I didn't take pictures. So I have no food pictures for this week, although I'm a month and a half behind in posting food pictures. So I've got lots of pictures to post, but I'm drinking. I was trying to make Christmas cocktails tonight. See, I'm wearing, for those of you watching, you can't really see, it says Merry and Bright on my sweatshirt. It's a new little sweatshirt. I finally transitioned from all my Halloween stuff.
You could do Halloween year round, let's be real.
Honestly, but this has been comfy. It's a sweatshirt, and I love my sweatshirt. So, and it's red and it's festive and all of that. So I wanted a Christmas cocktail tonight.
Yeah.
So the kicker is I'm on keto, which makes it difficult to find, there's all kinds of fun peppermint chocolate, yummy drinks that I can't do. Well, I can probably do those. I just didn't have time today to figure out the keto way of doing it.
Yeah.
So I thought I would do a a sparkling wine cocktail, and Daddy was supposed to buy me some grapefruit bubbly, which is the one brand of the bubbly that I like.
Yeah.
He forgot. So I had some raspberry bubbly in there, which it's got that aftertaste to me, so it's not one of my favorites. But it's got, this cocktail has raspberry bubbly, the Brut champagne, vodka. I think that's it.
Sounds pretty good.
And then I put a strawberry in it because he got strawberries for Riley.
Oh, that's cute.
So it looks festive. It's in my little Christmas plastic glass that I can't break.
Yeah, it's adorable.
So, and then I'm not super thrilled with this one, so I made another one. I'm double fisting here.
Oh my gosh.
Another one with the orange La Croix.
That's awesome. That's great.
I like that flavor better, but I'm not going to waste my champagne. So
of course not.
I'm going to drink both.
Yes, absolutely.
So I have jokes.
Oh, of course you do. Let's hear them.
And they're kind of food related. I don't. I'm kind of going to do a food analogy with our topic today too, kind of.
Okay. Yeah.
So, did you hear how they caught the great produce bandit? He stopped to take a leak.
Oh gosh.
Okay, that's funny.
Yeah.
Why do watermelons have fancy weddings?
Why?
Because they can't elope.
Oh, bless. Yes.
What does a grape say when it gets stepped on?
What?
Nothing. It just lets out a little wine.
I like that one.
I like that one too. So this idea, how do you take an idea and make a book? And
yeah.
I think that's where a lot of people get lost. They never make it from the idea form. I mean, your dad has book ideas.
Yeah.
But he doesn't know what to do with those ideas. I think everybody has ideas. They have dreams, they have stories, they have all these things going in their brains, but how do you take that idea and turn it into a book?
Yeah, right.
So the key is, turning that little spark of an idea into something more. It's all floating around in our brains. G.R.R. Martin went so far as to say, ideas are cheap, which I think he's right.
Right.
I have more ideas now than I could ever write up. To my mind, it's the execution that is all important.
Which I agree with 100%.
I do too. It's easy to have ideas.
Yeah.
But it's not so easy to turn that idea and manifest it into something more.
Into a whole story or whatever. Yeah.
So how do you take that little flame, that tiny spark, and make it into a full-blown fire? So step one, and this is kind of where my analogy to cooking comes in.
Yeah.
You find the ideas. So in a recipe, this is the part where you're thinking, I kind of feel like eating chocolate. And you start thinking about I could do fudge, I could do brownies, but salty sounds good too. So this is that stage of writing. So,
right.
You can get ideas from literally anywhere.
Anywhere and everywhere, yeah.
Everywhere. News stories, commercials, TV shows, movies, dreams. I actually get a lot from dreaming.
Yeah, no, I do too.
That point when you're dozing into sleep or coming out of sleep, a lot of ideas happen then. And I know that you write your stuff down or record it or whatever right as you wake up so you don't lose them.
A lot of the time I do, yeah, like especially if it's a dream where I'm like, oh, I could use that story, or that story gave me a really good idea, or this feeling that this dream made me have was like really good. So yeah, I'll pretty much put it right into my phone, or I'll tell my friend about it or whatever. And that way I remember it. Yeah,
a lot of that is the feeling that it gives you. At this point in the process, you don't really have a concrete idea yet. It's the feeling that this character evokes, this person, or like with Friggin' Fairies, it was an actual bit of conversation that popped into my head. It was a sentence.
Yeah.
Something that she had said. And that was the whole beginning, and it's set in my phone forever. But you know, sometimes a change of scenery, like this works really well for you and I, is go on a road trip, and just being in a different place sparks all kinds of ideas. Just that different setting, the different things that you're feeding, wow, your brain, can help you start coming up with ideas. We did an episode on brainstorming.
Yeah. Well, to go back to the changing in scenery, I think it's just, you know, it's especially useful for the urban fantasy genre, because it's so easy to visit a city or a tourist town or a park or whatever, and envision a story unfolding there in this world, which is what urban fantasy is typically set in.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and I love quaint towns like Savannah. To me, it's got that richness and that history. Asheville, North Carolina is wonderful. It's a quaint feel. A lot of college towns, Blacksburg, Virginia.
Right.
That feel to it. You just feel the magic there or something. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you mentioned that we did the episode on brainstorming. And so like, you also talked about using news stories and commercials and TV shows and movies and that kind of thing to come up with ideas. And it's a really good way to, you know, figure out what kind of character or what setting or stories triggers your excitement and your curiosity, and like a feeling of happiness, or I want to write that, or I want to do a theme like that, or a character arc like that. And so that's like a really good way to know, oh, I've got an idea for something, and this is a good idea.
Do you ever, I think we might have touched on this before in an episode, but do you ever watch the news and you think, what in the world caused that situation for that to happen? And your brain starts going, well, it could have been aliens, or it could, you know, it could have been this and this and this. And that, you know, because sometimes the news is just unreal. And you're like, no dad would really do that, or no whatever would really do whatever happened. And so my brain then starts going, well, what would make someone do something like that? And book ideas come from that. What else? Turn the page. Oh yeah, but I was saying we did an episode on brainstorming, so go check that one out. I don't remember off the top of my head what number it was.
I don't either. We're on 50 now, so that's a lot.
Yeah, and also Writer's Block talked about a lot of ideas for how to get your brain working again if you're trying to find the ideas. My problem is not finding the ideas. I have tons of ideas. My problem is then going to the next stage. What do I do with all of these ideas? Mm-hmm. So first of all, you collect them, but you've got to keep them somewhere, because especially with my old brain, it goes in and out, and I'll think, gosh, I had a really great book idea, but I don't remember what it was.
Yeah.
So somehow you've got to collect these ideas and put them somewhere.
Yeah, I put mine in my phone. I think I've talked about it on previous episodes and here and there. But especially if I'm out and about and I don't have access to my writer's journal, or it's in my bag, or it's in my office and I'm not there, but I get this idea, I'll just immediately stick it in my phone.
See, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I have used my phone. That's where Frickin' Fairies started. I don't know where, I might have been in court. And that first, it's actually turned out to be the first sentence of the entire novel. If I never see another frickin' fairy, it'll be too soon. Something along those lines. That popped into my head, and it had that, it made me feel something. I knew there was something there.
Yeah.
And wherever I was, I put it in my phone, and it sat there for probably over a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I just happened to be going through all my old notes, because every now and then I do that. And I was like, something just hit me, and it was time. It was time to focus on that particular book.
Yeah, same. I mean, I've had the Aura series in my head since 2014. Like, the oldest document that I have for that book series is dated 2014. And just like now versus like last year to now, I have been writing the first book. So it was like 6 years in between.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There is absolutely nothing wrong with the pre-conceptualization phase.
Yeah.
You know, we're gathering our ingredients. This is, what do we really feel like? And that is what this is about. you've got to have some method of retaining those little nuggets though, somehow. So whatever works for you, you might be a computer person. So a file on your computer might work. You might actually use some kind of software for writers. There are a lot of those out there. I like Pinterest because I'm a visual person. So it, you know, not yet, probably at this point, I wouldn't use Pinterest yet because I'm not ready for that, but I would start writing it down. I do have a file folder in my computer that's book ideas, and I just start putting, and I have different folders for different ideas, and sometimes those different ideas end up merging together into one book. But you got to have a way to record that so that you can come back and, you know, and I love to go back and look at my old notes. I'm like, some of them I can tell, okay, this was a dream because what I wrote down makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. But at the time that I wrote it, I'm sure I was full of whatever that feeling was.
Yeah.
So let's see. Oh yeah, you got to let them percolate. This is one of my favorite words to use when it comes to turning those ideas into books. I like to let them sit. You know, I think all writers have a million people in their heads, and people that are not writers don't really understand what I'm talking about when I say that. Your dad makes fun of me all the time about all the people in my head. But they do. They just kind of sit there and percolate. And, you know, one book might move to the back and another one might have more attention, or I might see something that triggers something going, oh yeah, for that book, that would be an excellent setting for that book. Or I like that particular house. That's the house that my character would live in, or whatever. And so the ideas come and go in your head, just kind of percolating. They're kind of, this is actually my favorite part of the writing, the idea. I love this beginning part because I'm not set in stone. I'm not bound to anything. My imagination is limitless. I can go any direction I want to. I'm not bound to what I've decided I want this story to be, which not to say that we're ever truly bound, because you can cut and edit and rewrite or whatever. But at this point, this idea is so full of promise, so full of this anticipated wonderfulness that
it's so new. It's brand new, so it's exciting. Like, I love thinking of brand new ideas, and I'm like, oh, like you said, there's so many avenues that you can travel with them. Like, oh, I could do this with it, or I could do this with it, or I could do both. You know, it's exciting.
It is a really wonderful start of your part of the writing. The other way to save and kind of start moving forward from just having these basic ideas bouncing around in your head is to start thinking of, you know, like sometimes it'll be a character that is the first thing that comes, and, you know, start hearing him or her talk. You know, what are they about? Write a scene. I know you do this a lot.
I do. I've talked about it before, but I'll write scenes for new ideas in my head because it like solidifies either that character or that setting or the conflict that I have there. Like, it lets me get to know those aspects of this potential novel without actually feeling pressured to write the novel, which is really nice.
Yeah. You're just at this phase in the very beginning of the organization phase. You're not buckling down for anything yet. It really is, the sky's the limit at this point. So
yeah, I have like, you were talking about having the characters talk in your head, and there was, you know, I'll have times where I'll have a snippet of dialogue just pop into my head, and I'm like, you know, I'll have the whole conversation out with whoever they're talking to, and then I stop and I'm like, who is this character? Who is talking to me? I have no idea who you are. And so I'll go and write it down, and it helps me figure out a little bit more about whoever the hell is in my head talking to me.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's the snarky ones that pop up, and I don't know what causes it. And I'm like, I love this person, but I don't know at this point sometimes whether it's a male or female, who they are, but I have envisioned this entire conversation that's just kind of floating in my head, but it's a wonderful conversation. And so that's when you got to go and write it down.
Yep.
So, you're starting to move more, the ideas in your head are getting fleshier. They're becoming heavier with potential.
Right.
So the next phase is to truly organize those pieces. This is where you actually gather the recipes together because you've decided, I want the chocolate. So now you go and you get the chocolate and you get all the butter and all of those things. This is that point in writing, is when you're gathering all of those pieces together.
Yeah.
So you become a little bit more serious about it instead of just enjoying the wonderful phase that you were in. You've got to get serious. You've got to come up with a method that works for you. So this is the point where I start using Pinterest, because I am very visually oriented.
Yeah, that, and it's like, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but Pinterest is so good for things like mood boards. Like, you can get the aesthetic of your novel down. Writing tips are all over Pinterest. So when you actually start writing your novel, then, you know, that's a good place to check out some tips and stuff. And then sentence prompts can all help focus all these ideas that you have for this story.
Yeah.
So I like Pinterest a lot.
Yeah. If you're struggling with, well, where do I start? What's the most prominent idea that's in your head for this book? Is it the setting? Start gathering pictures of the setting, you know, ideas, you know, is it a dystopian society? Pinterest has great pictures that will help spark your brain. Start doing that. If it's a character, what does this character look like? How old are they? Start looking at pictures of characters and expressions. I like to look at characters expressing different emotions, because it helps me to write when I can study their face and they're in the, you know, rage, or, you know, what are their teeth doing? What are their facial features doing as they're angry? So I save pictures like that.
Yeah.
It helps me visualize when I'm trying to put it into words.
I've discovered that finding pictures of a character's look helps. So not necessarily their face or like their hair, whatever, but like the clothes that they wear. Because I'll see an outfit and I'm like, oh, you know what, Kat would wear that. That's totally Kat. And it kind of gives me more of an idea of who my character is and how they express themselves too.
We need to do a topic on clothing and hairstyles for your characters. How do you come up with those things?
Yeah.
I think that would be a great idea.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
I mean, I remember writing the Kata story that starts here and ends up in a whole different world, not a holy world.
Holy world.
Holy moly, Batman. But I loved thinking about the clothing that they would wear in this society that is nothing to do with Earth. I mean, there are connections to Earth with this other world. So in some ways, in fact, one of my comic relief characters thinks he knows all about Earth. And so he's funny because the things he thinks he knows are entirely wrong.
Right.
So there is some connection. It's not a totally fantasy world in a different time and place that has no connection to our world. So in that way, I think it is urban fantasy, but it does border. But anyway, I had so much fun thinking of what clothes each kingdom would wear and why. And so we'll have to do a whole episode on that kind of thing. That would be fun. Some people like to use their computer to store these notes. Some people are absolutely 100% computer oriented.
Yeah, which I do have a folder system that I use for all of my stuff. Like you said, you've got a folder for book ideas, but I have, you know, my writing folder, and then within that writing folder, I've got book ideas, and then each book that I'm writing has its own folder. And then within that, there are, you know, here's the characters, here's the world info, here's blah. So, yeah.
What's different about doing that and using Pinterest is I can have just general Pinterest boards on fantasy creatures that I might have in any number of books.
Right.
As with my computer notebooks, I have a folder for each individual book.
That said, I do have a Pinterest board for like each of my books.
I have started doing that with the last 2 books.
Nice.
And I think you might have been the one that told me to do that. That was, I think, in one of our really early episodes, you told us, all of us, that that's what you did. And I was like, that is brilliant. And so I have for the last 2 books started
Nice.
doing that. Yeah.
Very cool.
We talked about our writer's journal before. We have an episode on the writer's journal. This would be a great place to start organizing. You know, you could even have a different notebook for each book.
Absolutely.
You could have an idea notebook that is a conglomeration of all of your ideas. And then you can have a writer's journal for each individual book.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as the idea grows, you're starting to organize more and more. You're getting more attention or detail oriented, not attention oriented. I guess you're giving it more attention.
Right.
You start thinking about, well, what goes into a book? You know, you've got characters, you've got events, you've got plot lines, you've got conflicts, you've got all these different ideas. And so you start taking all these little nuggets of ideas that you've had and start organizing them into where they belong.
Yeah.
You're getting a little bit more cohesive with what you've got to put together. You're still not cohesive. You still don't have the whole plot line down, but you're starting to organize these bits and pieces into where they might go. You might even start with saying, you know, I do have an idea of the beginning, middle, of an end, and this would go here and this would go here, but you don't know what the whole beginning, middle, and end is yet. That's not what this part of it is. So don't be frustrated. You can't sit down. Well, you can. You can be struck by, you know, lightning and absolutely have the book in your head and sit down and write it. I actually have done that before. The whole idea comes. And I know that some of the famous writers that we read have had that happen before, where they knew the whole story from start to finish before they even started the first book.
Right.
But that's not normal. And you can't expect that to happen to you. So don't wait. Don't wait until the whole idea is formed. No, you've got to start doing all of these little things. And these little things help you flesh out what your plot point is. Go ahead.
Yeah, one thing that I have started doing personally, I think with like the last 3 books that I've written, I didn't do it with Louie and Delaney. It started with, I think the Ara books is when I started doing this, but I'll take one Word document and I'll put in everything. I'll dump everything into that one Word document. So all the questions that I have about this world, all the character information that I've already thought of, any world information that I've decided on, all of that goes into this one document so that I can scroll through it and it'll spark new ideas and I can see the whole world that I'm building as a whole before I organize it further into separate things.
Yeah, so it's just chunks and pieces, but it's all in one place where at least you can get to it and start going through it. I do that too to some degree, and it's so funny. I'm trying to think. I think it was Frickin' Fairies where I would write down, this is where I think I want it to go. And as I wrote, I went back later and I was looking at my notes going, that is not at all where this book went. That is not where I wanted it to go. I mean, at some point I thought it might work, but yeah, you've got to start doing that in order for these to move forward.
Yeah.
So sometimes I have pieces of information in my phone. Sometimes I have sticky notes. It depends on where I am at the moment that, you know, the muse strikes me. Some are in my computer. And this is that time when you need to start gathering all of those loose pieces and start sorting them into some kind of loose organization.
Yeah.
You can name your file. Like we often call our books by the name of the main character.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't have the name of my main character when I come up with an idea. Sometimes it is a plot line that comes to me first. And so I'll call it, you know, the Hybrid War. Like that book I told you all about where you're not allowed to go on either side of, you know, there's the magic and the mundane and you're not allowed to mix. And you know, so I call that one, I still don't really know who my main character is. I just have that idea first. So I call it the Hybrid War and I start putting everything underneath that.
Right.
And like I said, I'm more visual. So Pinterest plays a huge role for me. But this is another fun part for me. I could waste well, I don't call it waste because it's not a waste. I could spend days going through pictures, and it makes me feel alive when I'm coming up with these ideas for a book.
It's a lot of fun. I also think it's like, this beginning idea stage where you're starting to put together these Pinterest boards are super great for inspiration and motivation for when you're actually writing the book down the road. Because if you're stuck and you have writers watching, you're like, you know what? I have a whole board with all these images that I can go and look at, and it'll get me in the mood to write again.
That's true.
So yeah.
Sometimes when you're writing, when you're down into the nitty gritty and actually writing your book, you get stuck on what you think your concept is. And if you take a step back and go back and look at your boards, you're like, oh, I forgot this was really what I was thinking here. And it will help you go in the direction that the book is really meant to go. Because we all get stuck, we all get writer's block, and we all go down that wrong path where we have to, cut out all that stuff that you've written, all those beautiful words that you've written. It needs to be done. And going back to this point where you've got all the loose organization helps re-spark what that idea was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lost. Your characters have a mind of their own, and they go sometimes down a path that really doesn't need to, you've got to rein them in. You've got to have some kind of, I love to let them go, because that's one of my favorite parts of writing is not knowing where they're going, but you've got to kind of have a rough idea, or else they're going to write themselves sometimes into a corner, and you will need to go back to your original notes and go, okay, what was I thinking? What was that? So at this point, we're still trying to be loosely organized. When you start too early trying to, I want to write this book, I want it to be a book, I want it, I have to be an author, I want to be a published author, you lose your inspiration, you lose that excitement, you lose the beauty of the magic of words.
Yeah.
So don't try to force it too soon. Are you looking at
Yeah, he's such a dummy when he tries to drink water. I don't know that he can realize like where it is. So when he goes to get the water, he always like ends up snorting a little bit. So I was just watching him do that.
To drink a boo here at our house, we turn on the faucet to where it just dribbles just a little bit.
Yeah.
He loves to drink it, whether he's thirsty or not. He will stand there for a long time just drinking water. Does he like that? Does your cat like that?
Catson's not allowed on the counters, and he knows he's not allowed on the counters, so he does not get to try that.
Abu jumps up on the counter. He has his one little spot on the counter where we feed him.
Yeah.
So that's his spot. That's his cat spot. It's not food spot, it's cat spot. And so it's right next to the sink, and he will, we buy him these expensive, cute, adorable little bowls, and he prefers to drink straight out of the faucet.
Of course.
So never be afraid to just let your idea sit.
Yeah, I think that's really important.
Don't ever feel like, oh, I've started this book. NaNoWriMo can be great to force you to move along, but don't be like that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That would be crushing to try to do all the time. I love it. I love NaNoWriMo for what it's worth, and it's once a year, and you get geared up and you get excited and you focus. And so it really, amazing things can happen. I think you wrote a lot of one of your books during NaNoWriMo one year.
Yeah, that was my MacBook. I wrote 55,000 words on it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you can't keep that up every day and every month.
No way.
So,
I mean, at least I don't know.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to let your ideas sit and percolate some more. Move on to another. We've paragraph write with another writer. There are other things you can do without killing your creativity, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And then also there are really good programs for organization. I know Scrivener is a really popular one. It's really good for organization. You can separate things out into chapters and scenes and all that jazz. So
is that the one you tried, or was it a different one?
It is the one I tried, but I only got to try it for a couple of days. So I didn't even really get to learn it before I got too busy with grad school, and then my computer that had it on it died. So,
yeah.
And it was just a tutorial. It was like the 30-day free trial. So I haven't even tried to see if I still have access to it or whatever. But
yeah, I can't decide if I'm too free-minded, free-spirited, whatever the word is, to try to use. You know, it's like on Etsy, I've got my store and I create some digital things, and I've got a digital workout sheet. And the reason I made the digital workout sheet was because nothing else that was out there worked for me the way that I work out. And so I made my own workout sheets for lifting weights and all of the things that I like to do. And I thought, you know, I've already done it. I might as well put it up for sale. And it works for some people. That's the same way with a lot of these writing programs. Some of them work for you and some of them don't. You've got to find what works for you. But unfortunately, we all a lot of times have, quote, real jobs that take our time, and we don't have the time for the 30 days. Like, you know, 30 days, I might get to write one day out of the 30 days.
Well, the nice thing about Scrivener is that it's 30 days that you use it. So if you use it for 2 days and then skip 5 days, it doesn't count as 5 days in your 30-day trial.
Now, see, that's kind of brilliant. Whoever wrote that understands writers.
Yeah, that was my understanding of it anyway.
That's pretty clever, because writers, even writers who write full time, the muse is not always there. It's not there every day. And, you know, you've got to go grocery shopping and you've got to take care of the kids. And even if you have no other, quote, outside job, whatever, you can't just sit and write every day. It's just, well, I can't sit and write every day. I think there are people that can.
Yeah.
I would love it to be my real job to be able to write.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so the next step is where you're starting to put all this stuff together. This is where you're actually following the recipe. You've got your ingredients. It's time to follow the recipe. So a lot of people, this would be the outlining stage.
I love outlining. I enjoy the structure that it gives me, and it gives me like a road to follow, because like otherwise I lose track of what I want in the story. So I really enjoy outlining, and I think I talked about it a little bit in one of our other episodes. I think we have, oh my gosh, Catson.
What did he do?
He just ran by me. I guess it was a Zoomies. I don't know. He scared me. It's what he did. I think we did an episode on plotting. And so I think I talked a little bit about it, where like I take all these ideas that I have for a book and write them all down on my whiteboard. Mm-hmm. And then I rearrange those events into chronological order, and then fill in the little bits between to connect those events, and like how did my characters get from point A to point B. I think any ideas that you have for a novel could be connected this way too. Like write down all of the ideas that you have and how are they relevant to each other, and how do they connect, and how would they fit inside your plot, and like that kind of thing.
I like using sticky notes for that.
I have that too. Yeah.
There's something about a whiteboard, even though you can erase and move. I like the sticky notes, you know, and people say also the note cards.
Yeah.
Use note cards, but to me, you should see my office. Note cards would not work for me. Sticky notes are stuck on the wall. They can't go anywhere. They can't get lost in that pile of files over there. So I like the sticky notes because you can put it on the wall and think it's in this order and go, this can't happen here. I need to move this up here, or this needs to happen first. And I love that about sticky notes. I do need a writing room where I have a wall that I can do that on.
I've already told Sydney that I'm going to have a room that all 4 walls are just whiteboards. So
yes, I mean, we all need a writing room, but I don't know which of you kids are going to be out on the street while I make my writing room.
What do you mean out on the street? I have my own place, thank you.
You can come home and visit, but there's going to be writing stuff all over the wall.
Maybe I'll erase all of your writing stuff and just put mine.
Oh, no, that would be terrible. Let's see. So, I'm not a super outliner like you are. I probably need to start cultivating that skill. I do not have that skill. I do like flowcharts, which is similar, but not as confined.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I also don't think it's necessary to be an outliner, especially when you're turning ideas into books. I think being a producer is completely fine.
I agree. I've never been a super outliner, and I've written 4 or 5 books now. So
yeah,
I don't think it's necessary to do that. It is very helpful if you do have that skill.
Yeah.
I do not have that skill. And I do like flowcharts. They're less confining to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I also use flowcharts every now and then. I put them on my whiteboard because I use my whiteboard for everything. And
that is a perfect use for whiteboard, because it's really hard to do flowcharts on the computer.
Yeah.
I'm restricted by what the computer will let me do. So whiteboards, you're very right. That would be a perfect use for whiteboards.
Yeah.
Okay. So usually at this point is when I have a character starting to really, really talk to me.
Yeah.
They are really starting to annoy me. They're coming into my everyday thoughts. I'm sitting here trying to do a grocery list, and they're there talking at me. And that's when, they're not just talking, they're yelling at me. That's when I know I am at the phase where I've really got to get my crap together, and it's time. It's time to move forward. We're not in the la la land of just, oh, what if this and what if that? It's time. And I think writers know that time. I think the key is getting to that point, and that's what we were talking about, and how to get to that point.
Yeah.
At some point, I reach a point where I know that a book idea is it's ready.
Yeah.
They've talked to me enough. I've got enough of a concrete idea that it's time. It's time.
Yeah.
I've tasted it. I'm now tweaking it. Like in the recipe context, you're adding the sugar, you're adding the salt, and you kind of know what direction it's going to go. It's going to be a chocolate cake. It's going to be a chocolate souffle. It's going to be chocolate pudding. You know which way it's going to go.
Right.
And so you're starting to put into it what goes towards that direction.
Yeah, I call that, like, whenever I get a book idea, I'll write on it for a little while, and then eventually, like, if it peters out, which hasn't actually happened in a while, but when it peters out, I'm like, oh, okay, well, that one's not going to go on. I'll add that to my book idea folder and move on. But when I get to the point in the book where I'm like, oh, this one is going somewhere, it's like it sticks. It's like the idea is it just sticks, and so it's there and it's not going away.
There's a feeling to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You feel it. I don't know how to describe it. I think any other author would know.
Yeah.
Exactly what we're talking about. And we're trying to help people who aren't authors yet. Although I think probably anybody listening to this are authors in their heart. They're writers.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
They're listening to this because they want to learn how to craft their craft better, whether they're professional authors or the beginners, published, non-published. I think we have stuff to talk about for everybody.
Yeah.
I went off track again. So yeah, at this point, we're getting into the hard part of writing the book. This is where you've really got to stick it out. This is the work. You're putting together that recipe. You're actually making that cake. I use flowcharts, plot points, outlines to a degree. And I think you need to try all of those things. Yeah. Even though I'm not an outliner, I sit down and I try to outline, point A to point B, what I start doing that at this point.
Yeah. Again, I really love the whiteboard for this. It gets me up out of my chair and active, and I pace my room that's back here behind me for those of you who are watching this. But I'll go in there and I'll pace, and I've got my whiteboard hung up on the wall. And then, so I'll sit there and I'll add a thing, and then I'll think about it, and I'll walk around, and I have music on and blah, 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 whatever. But
find that walking helps you think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Me too. And this applies to me in law as well. A lot of attorneys, you stand at the podium and you talk into the microphone. I'm one of those attorneys that I have to walk while I'm making my argument. I move around. I like to walk the courtroom. My brain just works better when I'm walking, and I can see you in your little writing room, which I don't have a writing room. I can see that. I can see that being very helpful.
Yeah.
Especially if you're right there to write it down. You know, you can always say, well, go take a walk then. Well, when you're taking a walk, you don't have your writing board where it strikes you and you're like, okay, that's it. Well, by the time I walk home, I forget. I'm
that's
old.
That's what your phone is for.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
See, I'm old about that too, because I forget about these things.
So that works.
That's true. I mean, that's true. You could still walk and take notes on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you've seen me on my phone.
Oh, well, yes.
I'm not the young generation for sure. At some point, we'll do another more in-depth episode about writing the middle of the book, because that is, for a lot of people, the hardest part. I mean, some people say the ending's hardest, some people say the beginning is hardest, but honestly, that middle, you gotta make it all work. So we'll do an episode on that at some point too. Okay, so you have gathered your ingredients, you're starting to follow the recipe, you are moving from, you're way beyond just the little sparks of ideas, you're moving into real substantive work on your book.
Yeah.
So now you come to making a cohesive, logical story. This is the baking part of your recipe.
Yeah.
You actually have to make it all work, because before we were putting all these things and points and ideas and all of that and loosely organizing it, but you can't have plot holes, and you've got to make the whole story work from start to finish. There's got to be a true plot line. So this is where that comes in.
Yeah, you got to be able to pull in, you know, character arcs and plot points that you've got and all the conflicts among characters and all this kind of stuff. You've got to be able to make sure that you bake that into your story.
Definitely. By this point, you really do have a more concrete idea in your head of the beginning, the middle, and the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're actively working to put this book into a logical plot line to get to the end at this point. This is often where you realize that, oh, crap it, I put salt in instead of sugar, and I've got to start all over again. It happens, and that's okay.
I'm actually doing that right now with one of my stories, where it's like I've got 15,000 words on one of them, and I'm like gung-ho to write it and everything, and I'm like, you know what? I don't like the way it sounds. I don't like the tone of it. I think I'm going to change the entire first scene, so I'm going to just start over.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That's okay. Yeah. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, you learn from your mistakes. You now know more about where you want this book to go. Knowing where you don't want it to go helps you know where you do want it to go. And
absolutely.
So that's awesome. And, you know, a cook goes through these things. And that's what we're doing, is we're cooking our book. Ooh, that sounds like drug related, cooking books and stuff.
Maybe.
We did just watch Breaking Bad not too long ago. So, you know, cooking. Yeah. Okay. So, you know, don't be afraid to start over. It's not the end of the world. It's, you know, a lot of new writers, I think, are like, I'm terrible. I'm awful. I've made this. It's not going any. Stop.
Yeah.
Number one, you're writing for you because you love it.
Especially on a first draft. Do what's fun for you.
And there is absolutely nothing wrong with taking your whole book in a totally different direction. Finding out where it doesn't work is the perfect key to finding out where it does work. So yeah, that's fine. Don't be upset about that. This is the time where you really have to decide, and where you're learning where you want this book to go. You're learning what you want this book to be. You might have had, you know, back in your notes in the beginning that we were talking about, You
Right.
might have had this concept of this is going to be the next great American novel. Okay, well, you know what? It might be a horror book. You just don't know. Not that
Yeah.
horror can't be a great American novel, but
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So be accepting of yourself. Writers are amazing creatures. We are also very, what is the word? Sensitive creatures, where we go from feeling like I am fantastic, I am the best writer in the world, to, oh my God, my work is shit. I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
Persevere. The whole writing community is out there for you. Join Twitter. We will all support you, and we expect support in return. I mean, which we do get. The Twitter community is amazing. That writing community, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I think this baking part of these steps that you're listing out here is probably my favorite part of the entire writing process. I think it's like putting puzzle pieces together with all of the components and ideas that you've gathered and brought together, and like putting them together in a, like you said, cohesive, logical story is like the funnest thing to me. So I really love it.
I like the idea phase so much better. Just because so much potential. Do you watch trailers for movies and you're like, oh, this could be this and this and this, and then you watch the real movie and it's like,
I don't watch trailers for movies that often.
I that's one of my favorite pastimes, is to sit and watch movie trailers. We did that last weekend.
I know.
I love it because it gives me this elation, this sense of, oh, this could be the greatest thing ever. And then sometimes you watch the movie and you're like, oh my God, that was terrible. I do that a lot. They don't like to let me pick movies very often. But that beginning phase where the sky's the limit, I love that. Mm-hmm. I just love that. Okay. So step 6, you've done all this work. It's done. You're taking it out of the oven. You finished your first draft. Woohoo!
Woo!
So have a drink, relax, and put it aside.
Yeah, put it aside like forever. I mean, I'm kidding, but honestly, a couple of weeks, if not more, is typically what works for me. Because as soon as I come back to it after a decent stretch of time, it's like looking at it with a fresh pair of eyes. You catch things that you didn't see before.
It's exciting again.
Yeah.
Whereas if you try to do it immediately after finishing the first draft, well, number one, you're going to read what you think it says, not what it does say, because it's in your head as to what you meant. You've got to get beyond that point, or you're going to see what you think it says, and that's not good. Let it percolate some more. Think about the plot. This is something that Taylor is amazing at. She'll say, I'm going to rewrite the whole book. I now know what I want. And she does.
Yeah. I mean, after I finish the first draft, I can see better like where it's lacking. The verbiage that I use can be improved. I can tell what plot points are not necessary to the overall story that I'm trying to tell. And then on top of that, like I can add a lot of art to the story when I rewrite it. Mm-hmm. It just gives me a lot more freedom. Like I feel less confined trying to fix this thing that's already there. Whereas like if I rewrite it, then I can just rewrite it how I want it to be.
Yeah, I definitely liked, even though you're excited. Well, and I suppose if you have an agent asking for it, you should not be querying a book that's not done. But if you have an agent waiting for it, then of course you might not have the option of sitting back and waiting.
Right.
Hopefully you aren't submitting queries when you're not ready to be.
Right.
I think that's one of an agent's worst nightmares, is to look at a query and go, this is good, and then not have the author be able to do it because they hadn't really written it yet.
Right.
You're doing that. And so then the next phase is the frosting. So you've let it sit, you've let it cool. Now it's time to frost the cake. And that's really the editing phase, which we've done an episode on the editing too. We could probably talk more about editing for sure. But, that is how you get from the beginning of just these little sparks of an idea to writing the whole book. And anybody can do it. Yeah, I must say, you have to put time into it. A lot of people all of this is easy. Well, I say easy, but it's doable, but you've got to make this a priority. You've got to make your writing a priority.
Right.
And I know that's calling the kettle black right now, because right now I'm swamped with my day job, which, I mean, I do love the law. So
yeah.
I do love my real job. I love helping people. I love the law. I love the nuances of arguing. I have always been an arguer. But it right now is taking 100% of my time. I haven't even been able to do my crafting stuff.
Yeah.
Which makes me very sad, because that's my outlet.
Yeah.
And then I make money on it too. So, you know, writing has fallen below both of those things. And that's not right, because it was my passion from the time I was your age.
Yeah.
I mean, I was writing as young as you were writing. And
right. Right.
In fact, when I was little, I came across, I don't know if I've told you all this or not, I was looking through my baby book and I came across an article, a newspaper that I wrote. I must have been maybe 8 years old.
Yeah.
And I wrote a newspaper for the neighborhood. And I went around to all the houses and asked if they wanted to subscribe to my newspaper. And they would give me 5 cents for the newspaper. And I had comics and I had weather and I had all these stories in it. I did start in college in journalism. That is what I thought I wanted to be. But writing, I have always been writing from the time I was a little kid. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate. I mean, I get to write in law too. There are briefs and I love making legal arguments. I do love that, but it's not the kind of writing I really, really want to do.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely.
Someday I'll be able to retire, which probably not, but if I can retire, then I can concentrate on my crafts and my writing, which are all 100% creative things.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm very happy.
That would be great. Yeah.
And then I could be a grandparent maybe at some point.
I don't know that any of your kids want kids.
None of my children want children. We'll see. We still have Riley, who's only 15. She just cringed up. She doesn't know why. She's like,
yep.
I feel bad. I don't know what happened. I think Jordan will have children eventually. She doesn't want them right now, which is good because she's in school right now, so she doesn't need them right now. But at any rate, thank you all for listening. I'm sorry.
I have an interview question.
Oh, I forgot.
So, out of all of your books that you have managed to complete, which idea, from the spark of the idea to this step 7, the frosting, which one would be your favorite, like going through the process?
Wow. You know, I think it might be my very first book.
Yeah.
Just because the whole thing was new at that point.
Yeah.
That's the Twin Saga. And that's the one I'm reworking now. And I'm 100% willing to rewrite the whole thing. It only took, let's see, I was 20. I hadn't had Courtney yet. So she was born in 90. So a long, long time ago is when I wrote the book. And I think it was so exciting. And I hand wrote this book. There were no such thing as computers when I wrote this book.
It's a big book too. And
it is it's a high fantasy. So it is one of the longer books, and I hand wrote it, you know, and this is one of the cases where I took lemons and made lemonade out of, because my judge, I was the youngest attorney in the 5 counties. I was one of 2 female attorneys in the 5 counties, and he liked to punish me. So I would have my cases, my child support cases, and he would make me go last. And these courtrooms in that circuit, it was country circuit, and the courthouses didn't have air conditioning, and they were wooden benches, just like the pews in a church and some of the older churches. And he would make me wait till the end to do my cases. And I don't know what I was leading up to. What was I talking about?
You were handwriting your book.
Oh yeah. So I took the lemons that he gave me and made lemonade, and I started taking a little notebook with me to court. And I would sit there and I would write. So, I would be there at 9 o'clock in the morning and he would hear my cases at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I had all that time to write.
Yeah.
And I wrote this book in court, waiting for my turn. And I do love that book. So that one probably is my favorite, going from the nugget of the idea to the end of the book. And it had that aha moment, that epiphany that I always talk about, because it's hard at the end. We'll have to do an episode on the end as well, where to tie everything together and make it all work is hard. And I did it in a damn courtroom.
Absolutely. I think mine would have to be Louie and Delaney.
Really?
Absolutely. The way that I got the idea, I might have talked about it a little bit before. I can't remember if I've done it on the podcast or not. But I would do these sentence writings where somebody would give me a sentence and I would write a page about that sentence. And I gave myself the rule, like, it can't go over a page. It can be double spaced or it can be single spaced, but it can't go over a page either way. And I had to use that sentence somewhere in the page. And so Courtney, my older sister, gave me a sentence that led to the entire Louie and Delaney novel.
What was the sentence?
Oh, I can't remember the sentence right now. It had something to do with blood on chalk drawings. So there was a playground with these chalk drawings, and there was blood that covered them. And so there's a scene in Louie and Delaney where Louie has to go to this crime scene, and it's at this playground, and there are chalk drawings on the ground, and she has to read the blood there. So that's what sparked it all.
What was your first book? Aiden was your first book.
Yeah, and I can't say that I'm not done with it. Like, I'm not done with that idea to finished book. I've done it before. I have 2 versions of that book that I am not happy with. So I'm doing it again. So therefore I can't really classify that idea to book as done.
Okay.
I'm still working on it. I think it's going to be a really freaking cool story now once I finish this book. But I don't consider that one as done. Otherwise it probably would be that one.
I have an idea. I wonder if our listeners would agree with this. I would love to give a sentence at the end of every show. And
that would be great.
Have them write a page and send it in, and we'll read them.
That'd be awesome. That'd be really cool.
Y'all let us know. I would love. We're not getting enough engagement from you guys, so I would love to do that. And it would work for you. It would work for us. I would be very excited to hear it. It would help your writing.
Yeah.
Let's do that. We'll have to come next time. We will come up with a sentence. And you all have to write, what were your rules? 1 page?
1 page, and it can be double spaced or it can be single spaced. It doesn't really matter, but it can't go over just 1 page.
And is it a scene or is it a story or what is it?
It's whatever you want it to be. So some of mine are just scenes and some of mine have a beginning and a middle and an end. So it depends on how you want to do it and where that sentence fits in your page.
I like that idea, guys. I would love to hear from you all. I know we've got talented people listening to us, and I would love to sample some of that talent. And
absolutely.
Maybe you all would like some claim to fame, so to speak, and be read out loud on our podcast. That would be awesome.
That would be really awesome.
What a great question. That was a good question.
Yeah, thanks.
So now, thank you all for listening. Come to our podcast. No, come to our website at eatdrinkwritepodcast.com. You can email us there. You can comment to us there. You can do whatever you want to there. We got lots of stuff. I'm not been as good lately at keeping up on stuff. I need to work on that. That might be my New Year's resolution. Come check out our social media. We've got Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, of course. Twitter, y'all, if you are not on Twitter, there is a huge writing community there that is super supportive. Definitely make a Twitter account, and anytime you're feeling down, those people are wonderful at lifting you back up again. There's a lot of support there. That's all I can think of. Come support us. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/EDW podcast. We have one patron. We love her dearly, Jen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We really could use the support. It does cost money to do this. I would love to write and podcast for the rest of my life. Forget the law. I mean, I do love the law, but I would do this full time if I could. Come support us. And we're going to start looking once COVID goes away at going back to different conferences again. So we'll keep you all posted on where we're going to be. Maybe you could come meet us. That would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
We like to podcast live from locations. So that would be pretty cool to have people come and we could have you all on our podcast. But anyway, you all take care. We love you.
Thank you, guys.